The Imperial Lords. First up, the Empire General. I can see in your eyes that you fear this enemy. I can see in your eyes that you wonder how we can fight such terrible monsters. Men of the Empire, I have the answer. We fight them with our steel. We fight them with our courage. But above all, we fight them with our faith in Sigmar. From Magnus the Pious, a former general of the Empire's armies. Empire generals are amongst the highest commanding officers within an Imperial army, second only in command to an Elector Count or the Emperor himself. They are usually drawn from powerful Imperial nobles and veteran military commanders, up to and including the Elector Counts themselves. To command an army requires the courage to send men to their deaths, without doubt or hesitation. The armies of the Empire are led by those warriors, usually members of the Imperial nobility, or even, in rare cases, Emperor Karl Franz himself, trained to direct their forces as a swordsman wields his blade. As with all men, however, these commanders can differ in their levels of skill and courage, with some, like the extraordinarily fierce Elector Count of Middenheim, Boris Todbringer, embodying the unwavering valor of the people of Sigmar Heldenhammer. Others are little more than high-born fops, yet still possess the right to command men in battle because of an accident of birth. The castles of these generals are hung with banners from ancient times that were once born into battle during the glorious days of their noble ancestors. Especially wealthy Imperial nobles may even own a banner that has been woven with powerful enchantments, and such works of magic are proudly carried into battle despite the poor reputation witchery has in the Empire in general. The Empire has always been a dangerous land, and never more so than at the present time, with marauding beastmen, orc tribes, and even rival Imperial nobles pillaging its towns and slaughtering its people, often with impunity. The Elector Counts must stand against such foes, though in practice it is not feasible for them to personally command every one of the forces that must be dispatched in their names. Command is often delegated to a trusted soldier considered to be an honorable leader of men, and this officer will lead the province's troops into battle. Of course, there are always exceptions to every rule, and some of the more militant counts, such as Valmir von Raukov of Ostland, have a great love for the clash of steel and the roar of the cannons. These leaders take to the field of battle whenever they can. Most of the men appointed by the Elector Count to lead their province's armies will also be nobles of the Empire, such as Aldebrand Ludenhof of Hochland, educated in martial pursuits from an early age, hunting beastmen in the Imperial forests, and engaging in falconry and swordsmanship. Others are commoners who have risen through the ranks as a result of their ability on the field, perhaps having first stood in the battle line themselves, wielding a bloody halberd or great sword. These officers vary greatly in rank, depending on the size of the force they lead, and are usually known within the Empire as marshals, generals, or sometimes simply commanders. Regardless of their social status, they will be tested veterans of many years of experience in soldiering, having spent most of their lives practicing the arts of war in defense of their besieged homelands. Generals of the Empire are varied in the arms and armor they like to wield and wear. Some make use of melee weapons, while others prefer ranged weapons like the longbow, crossbow, or firearms like the pistol. The most impressive of generals can wield the mighty Drakvald Runefang sitting in the Imperial Vault. Generals of the Empire can choose to wear light armor, heavy armor, or even dwarf-forged full plate armor if they prefer wading head first into action. They can bolster this already strong defense by equipping a shield. While most ride powerful warhorses into battle, some of the greatest nobles of the Empire who serve as generals for the Elector Counts ride winged Imperial Pegasi into combat. Or they may even ride griffons, like the Emperor himself, their enchanted banners streaming out behind them in the wind. Such a spectacle is always an enormous morale booster for Imperial troops. The Huntsman Generals. A unique variant of Empire General, Huntsman Generals are veterans of many scouting parties. They are the most experienced among the Empire's elite huntsmen, and therefore the best candidates to lead. Experts at taking down large enemies from a distance, they are commonly equipped with enchanted missiles known as Arrows of Akshi. These arrows will kill, of course, but are mainly used to cause a disorientating, explosive spectacle to unnerve the enemy. The Imperial Wizard Lord. All wizards are war wizards, by the very definition of their being. Every single one that we might see upon the streets of Altdorf, or coming to and for their college buildings, are powder kegs, simply awaiting a match. From Lord Melched Eisener of Altdorf. A wizard lord is one of the most powerful practitioners of the arts of magic amongst the race of men. Trained as masters of one of the 8 laws of magic at the Imperial Colleges of Magic in Altdorf, arcane power courses through their veins and lurks behind their eyes like the thunder before a storm. The services of a wizard are always much sought after by the Elector Counts for their armies, as they often face foes in battle who employ potent shamans or fell sorcerers of the ruinous bowers. A wizard lord is a true master of his craft, an individual who has come to embody one of the 8 winds of magic within his own body, and has often spent many decades training other wizards to be in their particular law at the colleges of magic. Only the most powerful Imperial armies are normally able to employ a wizard lord, and wizard lords often lead teams of their fellow magi into combat. Only the most dire of threats to the Empire can get a wizard lord to leave the comfort of his laboratory in the colleges of magic to face the difficulties and endless frustrations of the field. Once on the field, they are the masters of the battlefield, able to send lightning bolts from the sky, massive infernos hurling towards their vile enemies, or even, in some cases, send a massive meteorite from the very heavens, crashing molten rock upon those who dare to defy the glorious Empire's realm. Very few armies can withstand a battle against a wizard lord, for they also bring in a conclave of their own apprentices and magisters that can bring in only more mayhem on the battlefield. And now, a few little-known facts. Those that practice magic for any length of time find that it slowly but surely begins to alter their perception of reality. It may start with simple things such as colors becoming more vivid or hearing whispered voices in the wind, but over time it will lead to a fundamental change in the Magister's mind. By the time a wizard attains the rank of Lord, he is irrevocably infused with magic, the essence of it seeping into the very marrow of his bones and trickling down into the darkest corners of his psyche. Such an altered perception can result in unusual behavior, and as all who deal with such powerful wizards know, their mannerisms are more than mere eccentricities. The wizard lord will often stare into the middle distance, muttering under his breath or making strange hand gestures as if in constant dialogue with an unseen force, a consequence of looking constantly into the beyond. Sometimes it is hard for a wizard lord to focus on the present, as his mind wanders back and forth in time, or is distracted by the colourful flow of magic that caresses the object he should be concentrating on. Of course, in moments of urgency, a wizard can shake off his reverie, and the source of his distraction becomes the tool with which he forges his great power. The Call to War. When a wizard's power reaches its peak, and he attains the highest ranks within the colleges of magic, he also takes on a sacred duty to use his power to protect the Empire in times of strife. Members of the colleges of magic understand that they were created and are allowed to prosper in order to protect the Empire from those that would destroy it. So, in times of war, the Emperor calls upon his most powerful wizards to march to battle alongside his armies and use their gifts to strike down his foes. It is a duty that wizard lords accept as part of the price of their power, and one that most perform willingly. Of course, this duty to the Emperor can come in many forms, and while the most common is service in times of war, it can sometimes manifest in more subtle duties. Wizard lords not averse to open warfare might be expected to pay a tithe of potions or magical artifacts to the Emperor to aid his forces in battle, or might agree to raise some of their apprentices as battle mages, wizards specifically trained to devastate the Emperor's enemies with destructive battlefield powers. The Arch-Lectors. His is the grim, unending task of uprooting and shattering evil in all its forms. Arch-Lectors are powerful warrior priests who serve under the high priests of their respective churches. Apart from high priests such as the Jarl Ulrich and Grand Theogenist, Arch-Lectors represent the ultimate rank that can be achieved within the Holy Orders. Ostensibly, they must be the wisest, most devout, and most accomplished members of their faith, eminent personages even among the great and the good. They must lead the cult through perilous times, The future of their god's followers in the world is in their hands. Needless to say, such responsibility is a heavy burden. Arch-lectors are often already aged when they attain their position. However, this is not a position that a priest can achieve simply by serving his time and keeping out of trouble. Sometimes younger, energetic priests are recognized for their talents and given the rank of Lector, or, in unusual cases, Arch-Lector. Most cults cannot afford to squander what talent they have, and the old world is not the sort of place in which complacency and seniority trump skill, devotion, and talent. Arch-lectors usually represent a territory or an important city, a territory that can be as large as a province, or even several provinces. They have the final say on religious matters that arise in their territory and are answerable to none save the high priest of their order and the emperor himself. Orders within a cult might be represented by either a lector or arch-lector, and this gives a good indication of the status of that order. To end things off, the Imperial Grand Master. Reiksguard Knights, your Emperor is calling. Death or glory awaits us. But if we die, we will die as warriors, with swords in hand, and there is no better death than that. From Court Helborg, the Grand Master of the Reiksguard Knights. Grand Masters are the highest-ranking knights within a knightly order, commanding the complete allegiance of all its members. To lead admirable knights into honorable combat against the chaos is a credit to their commander, and to stand and lead such a band as you is an honored blessing, as if from the gods themselves. From an anonymous Grand Master. A Grand Master is a warrior and leader of unparalleled valor, having fought in dozens of battles, and whose military prowess is beyond question. An Elector Count can request that a knightly order fight alongside his army, but the decision to ride out lies solely with the Grand Master himself. This makes the Grand Master a very powerful ally, and great care is taken not to offend them. Each Grand Master is a paragon of knightly virtue, and is not only one of the most fearsome warriors in the old world, but also a legendary commander and leader of men. They are rare in number, for even amongst those dedicated individuals who have the skill and strength of mind to become a Knight of the Inner Circle, few have what it takes to reach the pinnacle of knighthood. A Grand Master is always at the forefront of an army when it marches to war, and is usually among the most trusted of military advisors and generals, and when not engaged in warfare, is often charged with planning for it. A Grand Master of a Templar order is often a leading personality within a religious cult as well, commanding total loyalty from its warriors. When an Elector Count petitions a knightly order for aid, it is sometimes a condition that the Grand Master himself take command of the army. Most Elector Counts are only too happy for a general of such superlative ability to lead his soldiers, though this has not always been the case, and ego, ambition, or sheer lunacy has sometimes brought unfortunate consequences.